I'm really excited to have Tiong Gee, a dear friend. We've traveled to not around the world, but certainly at least to places like Vietnam to share with banks on what they could be thinking about differently as well. And whenever I've gotten to listen to him talk, I always sit with rapt attention because there's something to pick up, there's some insight to get, and for some reason, there's always something new as well. So it's just a testament to his wealth of knowledge. Tiong Gee has a interesting background, similar to we talked a couple of weeks back with Alex Yao, if you remember, and he started off with a civil engineering background and went to become CIO. Well, Tiong Gee started off with a mechanical engineering background and went on to be not only CIO, but Chief of Human Resources as well, which was interesting in his background. So he's worked with Stats Chippack as well as Siemens, and they integrated into Infineon. He was the lead integration person for that, and he has turned around the Yellow Pages in a very interesting story. We all remember the Yellow Pages phone book, right? That you used to either read, or maybe dad might hit you with it, or you could sit on it. Lots of different uses for the Yellow Pages. And now it's been transformed into something completely different as well. So he led that transformation. And I love the fact that he's blended IT with the human resource side. And so he's eminently qualified to talk about what does it take for companies to transform and to share the story of the Yellow Pages transformation. So let's welcome Tiong Gee here to our webinar today. Thanks a lot for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Keith.
And and of course you can put your questions in the chat. Also, at the right time, I'll open it up and we can do vocal questions as well, so that everyone can get involved. We look forward to just having a nice casual discussion here. And the most important thing is that you come out with some good insights, some good additional knowledge, and maybe you ask some questions that have been concerning you, and maybe you come out with some interesting solutions as well. One last thing. Hey, let's get a chance to network. So please, after we finish talking, we may hang around a little bit after the formal session, and you can get to know other participants that are here. All right. So with that, let me turn it over to Tiong Gee and dive right in. Tiong Gee, maybe I've given a little bit of introduction about you, but could you share a bit about the topic of the hour here? How did you move from mechanical engineering all the way to Yellow Pages, and how did you start disrupting the phone book?
Okay, it's a long story. We probably need more than an hour to talk about that. First and foremost, I think thanks for spending time listening to me, and thanks Keith for your very kind words. So I last night Keith and myself were talking and say, well, you're going to have fun. So this is going to be a conversation, and I'm going to talk to you guys as if you are my friends. You're having coffee, and so nothing formal. So you see, I'm in short sleeve as well, trying to make it as casual as possible. So how did I get from mechanical to where I am? I must say that I am a boomer. I'm very old. Way back, IT wasn't sexy then. So I graduated from NUS back in 1987. And the School of Computing was still in its infancy. But I always have a big interest in IT, and I remember I owned an Apple II way back then, and my final year project in NUS was on robotics. So there was always this slant towards automation. So after I graduated, the first job I did is with digital equipment, and one of the largest computer company back then, second to IBM. It is now sold to HP, and was a great company then. So learned a lot from there. I spent a year in US learning AI, back when AI wasn't even known. And I came back. I wanted to transform the world, transform Singapore, and almost joined JSAC. I don't know how many of you guys are old enough, probably not. So the Singapore government have actually a partnership with Japan at that time called Japan Singapore AI Center. And they offered me a job. And by then I realized that AI is not ready for big time. But you look at today, AI is huge. So it took almost, that was back in 1990. So I was in US doing AI back in 1988. So when I came back 1990, JSEC was there, they offered me a job. And when I look around, AI just wasn't there. So, but AI, look at AI, where AI is today. So the point being that technology sometimes take a long time to incubate before it finds the right application. And a lot of things actually, especially in technology, sometimes it's too complicated for that time. And finding a match for technology, it's typically, not the right thing to do. So AI happens to grow into it. AI was many years used in gaming. I mean, you'd be surprised, right? So in gaming, they were way more advanced. So they created avatars and so on and so forth. And then over the last few years, because of computing, the speed and skill of the computing power, AI came up to the forefront. I remember way back, when I was in digital equipment, I created fraud detection software using AI for DBS. And we demoed to them, and they were really, really skeptical. But look at today, all right? A lot of fraud detection software used in banks, in financial institutions are using AI, and the likes of it, just so that was a bit ahead of time. So that's where I am. I spent 30 years in corporate, doing a lot of IT, helping companies transform. The last company being Resort World, so did quite a fair bit of work there around transformation. But that's another story for another day. So to Keith's point, I ran AI. I ran HR for 10 years of my life over 2 companies, multinationals. And I must tell you this, right? HR is a much, much, much more difficult job than IT. So please be kind to your HR executives. It is a much, much more difficult job. When I'm looking after IT, my computers don't talk back to me, but when you are looking after AI, you have so many different shades of gray. And I tell you, my hair turned gray overnight looking after AI. So looking after HR. So about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start on Life 2.0. And I left corporate, and Yellow Pages, watching to actually buy over Yellow Pages came up. So the company, the listed company that owns Yellow Pages at that time decided that Yellow Pages has, run the course of its life. The listed company, GYP, decided that they have already gone into properties then, right? That no, Yellow Pages not going to make money and would never ever make money again. So that is where they decided to close it down. And they tried to sell it to, the larger company, SPH, so on and so forth, right? And nobody wanted to touch it, nobody wanted to buy it. And I say, okay, why don't I give it a shot? So it's, I don't know, some people say, well, smart move. I would say it's a foolhardy move. I don't know what I was getting into. So that was 3 years ago. Fork off some money. My wife didn't actually know exactly how much, but I told her a figure that's lower than what I forked out. And once you have skin in the game, it's an entirely different picture, right? So once you have skin in the game, it becomes real. So we let go of majority of the staff. I try to keep some, but there's just no fit. Part of the problem with many traditional companies, including Yellow Pages, is that, when transformation happens, it happens overnight, right? So Yellow Pages was profitable for the longest time. At its peak, it was doing a revenue of $130 million. Can you believe $130 million, doing 50% net margin? Just think about it, 50% net margin. So within the Yellow Pages building, there's gyms, there's all kinds of stuff. It's just rich. It was a very rich company. And those of you who are old enough will know that Yellow Pages used to pay very, very good dividends. So people buy Yellow Pages because of the dividends it pay. So over time, that dwindled, right? Until 2007, the company was the first time, 2017 was the first time that the company got into a loss. And the management of Yellow Pages decided that it would never make money again, looking at projection. But the the interesting thing is this, right? Even in 2017, where I started to lose money, the last copy of Yellow Pages was this thick, still this thick. So that gives me confidence around that there's still a lot of customers, a lot of SMEs out there that actually still believe in the brand. But the effectiveness of the book is, of course, it's gone, right? So despite that, people are still willing to advertise in Yellow Pages. So I felt that there is a business proposition there, and just that the company did not transform fast enough. So the big business proposition I see at that time is this, right? SMEs once advertise in Yellow Pages because they want leads. So has that gone away? No, that's not gone away. Every company wants lead so that they can actually increase their revenue. So that has not gone away. But the medium of how it's being done has gone online. So Yellow Pages used to be the one-stop shop for everyone, right? You open a book and they find whatever they want, whether it's a plumber, so on and so forth. Some people look for their old girlfriend, old boyfriend, and see where they stay now. That's the white book. Yellow Pages publishes that as well. But all those are gone, so you can't find out where your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend stays now, because we don't publish that. So I decided that there is still a proposition if I can digitally transform Yellow Pages, bring everything online. So that's where the opportunity is, right? So bringing it online requires me to actually transform the whole workforce. So as of 2017, there was about 100 over staff in Yellow Pages because it's print, right? So print requires quite a fair bit. The people dealing with printers, the drivers, the layout artists, so on and so forth. So it's quite sad, but I have to work with the company to lay off the majority of staff, and I retained about 10 of them, and hired another 10, and then we started to actually redo the new Yellow Pages, the whole digital Yellow Pages, if you may, right? So today we are, I think, thriving again. I think we are profitable. We have been profitable last year, and what we provide is exactly what Yellow Pages of the past do, which is helping SMEs get leads. But now we help SME get leads online. So we provide the whole entire gamut of digital marketing. So the old Yellow Pages directory is now completely online. And one of the strategies we do, and we have not completed that yet, is that, we SEO every category. So we have about 100 category that we SEO. SEO stands for Search Engine Optimized. So that when someone is searching for, let's say, electrical contractor, then you come up page 1. Page 1 in Google speak is Orchard Road, right? That means it's prime real estate. So when people search, very, very rarely people go beyond page 2, page 3, right? So page 1, page 2 at most. I think all of you do search. So we do a lot of SEO. So I have SEO experts among the best in Singapore. So we are actually systematically looking at a category where we can actually SEO categories so that the directory becomes relevant again. So we are actually on a big project now to actually do a lot more, because that has been proven to be quite successful. And I have a few things on my back that helps, because Yellow Pages is a known name. It's what you call in digital marketing a domain authority. So when Google look at Yellow Pages, say, oh, aha, I can trust you. You're not some scam site. So we can rank the categories easier than a lot of other brand new sites. There are a lot of brand new sites coming up that take advantage of that as well. So we are actually doing that, and then of course we actually augment that with a lot of digital marketing stuff. So we have a digital director that also does Google AdWords for Google. Can you imagine? So people never imagine that Google would need to look outside to actually get someone to work on Google AdWords. So we have a digital director doing that. We have, as GM, I was very blessed. I'm very blessed to have Jo. Jo is a 62 years old grandmother, actually. So she's my idol. Because you will never imagine doing digital, you get somebody who's 62 years old, but she is among the best in the industry on SEO. So she's my idol because when you look at digitalization, people look for people in the 30s, but she was complete. So it shows to me again a key thing, right? It is not the age, it is the attitude, the ability to learn. I think that is number one. So I always put Joe as my shining example of somebody who have stayed on top of the game by being able to continually, learning and applying it. So she's an inspiration for my entire company, including myself, that you can survive beyond that. So she's a grandmother of 2, and she's still the top of the game. So she has helped many of our customers SEO their websites and their page number one, including a lot, because we actually started back into industrial companies. The B2B companies are the ones that are still paying. The B2C companies are the ones that are a bit more challenging. But at this time, during the COVID season, we are actually helping a lot of F&B, because the F&B are completely, a lot of them devastated. So a lot of the companies died, and we are trying to help those that have not died go online. And F&B, the key challenge, of course, is that they typically are good at the food, they are good at the service, but they are just not good at marketing, except for the bigger F&Bs. So we are helping a lot of these smaller F&Bs go online, number one. And number two, just going online is not important, not enough. You need to go online and need to be searchable. So it applies to every small companies in the world, right? SMEs. So people say, okay, I need to go online, but that's not enough, right? You go online, there's a billion companies out there. If you can't be searched, you may as well not go online. So digital marketing and e-commerce go hand in hand. So that is very important, and many SMEs doesn't know that. So that is part of the whole transformation journey, and I think that is, just to start the conversation, right?
Well, I like that you've brought this to bear, especially in terms of your support of F&B. It's very tough. In the US, for example, 60% of the F&Bs closed permanently. That's a huge number. And so, of course, that means that as things come back and people start to go back out, some percentage will recover. But then actually, normally I would ask you a question that, I've prepared and set up, but we had an early participant come in and ask the question right away. So let me go right to the first participant question here, which connects well with what you were just talking about. Yellow Pages, Google, helping perhaps companies, certainly part of this digital transformation, tools that are enabling. And the participant, Joshua, asked, hey, listen, it's all good for governments and MNCs with deep pockets to do digital transformation. But what about SMEs? How can they be agile to digitally transform when resources are limited? I heard you say a really important word, attitude, that the 60-year lady was helping you with digital marketing and SEO. Wonderful. Can you take us through how these SMEs can really move forward?
Okay, let me talk about one of our customers. And this lady owns this shop in Queensway. You remember Queensway? And people in Queensway look at all those shops over there and say they are many years old. So this particular lady owns a shop doing photostating. I even remember way back when I was in university, and I have a textbook. I can't afford textbook. I bring to Queensway and get it photostated. So keep don't record that. I don't know where the point. But that was what poor students do. I think those people in my era would know, right? You can't afford those textbooks, and we were very poor then. You go to Queensway, get it photostated. So she owns one of those shops. So the fact of the matter, she's still around today, but she has a very, very positive mindset. She has a very, very, curious mindset. So she became a customer a couple of years ago, and she says, Tiong Gee, come in and try this for me. We went in, we helped her with local search. We started to help her do digital marketing, and she sees the results. And people start going in, and she increased her business. We help her bring it online, and she's prepared in this COVID season to actually weather this. So that's an example of one customer that we helped and managed to do it. But there's a lot of them out there that we talk to, and they don't have a similar attitude. Because number one, right, SMEs in Singapore, and they are a bit luckier because they get funding. And most of the SMEs, as a result, are quite spoiled. So first question when we talk to them, they will ask, is there funding? And if there's no funding, it says, okay, I'm not really interested. But we are a bit luckier because we do digital marketing and e-commerce, so that helps them in revenue. But you're talking to them about productivity and things like that. I tell you, it's going to be very tough. You're going to talk to them about cybersecurity, forget about it, right? For the SMEs, especially the micro SMEs, you can forget about it. So I talked to one small company, small SME, he says, Tiong Gee, it's okay, I lose my data, it's okay. That's the attitude, right? So with that, it's very hard. But I think with the COVID, it gives a lot of impetus for these companies to go online. And we see that. We see a lot of them coming for help. Because especially those brick and mortar shops, like I mentioned, we did not do a lot of B2C in the past. But now with this COVID, a lot of B2C customers are really suffering, whether it's F&B, whether it's retail shops, because when they can't open, there's just simply no chance for them to sell. So they realize the importance of e-commerce. And like I told a lot of them, you can't just do e-commerce, you need to be able to make sure that people, when they're searching for you, they can find you. Because versus the past, you look at Yellow Pages, you look at it, now you are, when you do e-commerce and you are online, there's a lot of competition, there are those small little guys that just set up in their HDB flat competing with you because no one would know. So how can you actually be able to make yourself visible? So I think those are the two most important parts, right? The ability to actually reach out to a global audience and to be able to be visible when they are searching for you. I think that's the two most important areas.
You highlighted something very interesting about the PDPA and data breach. If an SME loses its data, in fact, you made me curious. I just went to quickly look at, because of course, Grab Taxi was in the news recently for receiving a $10,000 and later $20,000 fine for their data breaches that they had a couple of years ago. And so SMEs do need to be a little bit concerned because they can get at least 5-figure fines if they don't remediate the problem as well. But for sure, it's an interesting thinking, right? Like you've just said, at one point, an SME might say, oh, if it's not funded, I'm not interested. And on the other hand, oh, cybersecurity, I'm not sure. So it's almost like you've put on the table here something very interesting. Do we know what we don't know? How do we get people to understand and care about these topics? Because if you do go online, you're more exposed to fraud and other things, right? It's like a double-edged sword. Yesterday, we were talking about the Singapore core and the strengths. How do you see how this fits together with the mindset of maybe some SMEs that are really leaping ahead, jumping and getting online and doing data protection, everything, but then others that are kind of the laggards?
Yeah. No, Kip, I think you brought out a very, very pertinent point, right? Because now more and more companies are going online, and there are a lot of baddies out there. A lot of bad guys out there trying to scam, and it makes them a lot easier because the payback is outsized. In the past, they would have to go and rob a bank. Today, they just go online, so the risk is a lot less. So, I think number one, I think the education is very important, and education comes. For me, as I bring in customers online, one of the things we educate customers is the importance of going on. So I have a partner that actually it's a very strong cybersecurity company. So wherever we do e-commerce, we bring them along. And the first time the partner presented, I say, well, you're not going to tell any SMEs, get any SMEs to sign up. So to actually get an SME to sign up, you need to scare the shit out of them. So I think the first slide need to show, okay, you're going to get potentially this company get fined $10,000, Grab get fined, this company get fined $20,000. That's a language they understand, right? For SMEs. I mean, I'm an SME, so I that's what I see, what I hear. So scare the shit out of them.
Okay.
That's so once you get that, then say, okay, you put this thing, how can you prevent this? You put that, how you prevent that? So I think that strategy to a certain extent is working. But that's it, right? That's it. Many SMEs are struggling for survival, right? So you got to really be able to put together something that doesn't have any fluff, right? The very basic necessity to ensure that things are just protected, right? I used to work in corporate, and you know, in a place as big as Resort World, for instance, we got hacking almost every other, you know, big incidents here and there, and you know, our budget for security is large, and I remember one meeting I have with the board, and the board asked, "Oh, with this large budget, can you ensure that we never get hacked?" I say, respectfully, no. The answer is no. Well, you would never, nobody on earth can ever ensure that you're 100%. But what I can ensure you is that, you know, no casual thief is going to come in, right? So you assume you have a house. I'm going to buy you a locks. I'll lock up every window. I'll lock up every door. But I'm not going to get you the best lock in the world. I'll get locked so that a casual guy driving past, you try the window, you can't open, he will move on. But if I have a professional thief, like a national level, no lock on earth is going to secure that. So that way you ensure that there's a basic level of security. So similar for SMEs, right? So ensure there's a basic level of security that doesn't cost them an arm and a foot. And at the same time, they will get fined. So that is a basic level that we are trying to advise our SMEs, right, in terms of security. And it is so important. So coming to the Singapore core, I think we had a very good conversation yesterday about the Singapore core. You know, there is a lot of conversation about deep tech and stuff like that, and we have you know, interesting conversation, right? I'm going to bring it up online now. You know, I have many conversations. In my spare time, I am a president of Tech Talent Assembly. Part of that is to trying to uplift the competence of tech professionals in Singapore. It's an affiliate association of NTUC. So I have always been advocating that tech professionals stay up to date, but there's a limit for mid-careers. So mid-career tech professionals have to actually be able to still go into tech, but do not deep tech. So we are actually I'm advocating them looking at soft tech and the ability to run project. And then we have a lot of discussion around the Singapore core. What is Singapore core? What do we need to bring our professionals into? And I'm going to throw the idea out there, right? I would argue that the Singapore core, if you look at the DNA of Singapore, is a trading hub. Because if you look at Singapore, what are Singaporeans known for? Singaporeans are known to be fair, honest traders, right? I mean, we have been a trading port for the longest time. We respect the rule of the law, right? So people come to Singapore because we have integrity. So if you look at that, that is our number one core. That's the real Singapore core. I feel that if you're going to put, say, deep tech as a Singapore core, it's going to be really, really hard for you to compete against the Indians, the Chinese, because they have a billion people out there, right? And it's really, really going to be hard. But if we make ourselves the Singapore core around trade, around commerce, and then build technologies around that, right? Whether it's fintech, whether it's cybersecurity, protecting cybersecurity around trading, whether it's AI around selection of products. I think you will have a lot better chance in competing in the world stage. That at least is what I'm putting out there. And to do that, we need to build people who actually understand how do you actually build e-commerce, for instance, right? And the fundamentals around e-commerce, what are the payment engines? How do you actually ensure that that's secure? How do you do, that's where our fintech comes in, right? So there are many, many layers you can lay on top of that, even AI, right? So last year I was doing a startup specifically around that area. My vision actually is to how do you actually enable micro lending around SMEs? Because SMEs that we talk to have two key things that they're all ears. One, how do you help them increase their revenue? And number two, how do you help them with the cash flow? So I am helping them in terms of revenue through digital marketing, e-commerce. But in terms of cash flow, that's where an area that SMEs, you tell them, I help in that cash flow, they'll be all ears as well. Then coming to a distant third is productivity. right? Because this tool is in survival, then productivity, when SME is doing well, then they say, okay, I want to be able to reap more profit. But a lot of SMEs are probably still in these two key areas. And that's my view on the Singapore core.
I think that's one other aspect of this. You know, I loved how you talked about the focus, the strengths, right? So talking about trading, and Han Tien just mentioned the steel that comes into Singapore and some of our ports, PSA and what have you. Trading is a strength, right? Something that we could lever up on. What digital transformation do you think, because Yellow Pages is part of this trading too, making e-commerce visual and other things, what are some key skills that people could learn to really hop in, be relevant in this transformation of the trading aspect that's been Singapore's strength for so long?
So one of I've been thinking a long time about this. You know, one of the things that I have always wanted is to have the possibility of a marketplace of SMEs, where SMEs transact among each other and then around the world in a marketplace where information is transparent and they are able to, for instance, right, leverage on pricing around the world and be able to look at, you know, they don't get scammed, right? So it's that has been my vision for the longest time, and to do that requires quite a fair bit of work. And fortunately, during this COVID, SG United, and again, luckily we have the Singapore government and the deep pockets. They are doing a lot of training, and I took up a program, the Digital Marketing E-commerce program. So together with Learning Hub, so we are training actually quite a fair number of people in this particular skill set. And one of the objectives I wanted to do is that, I mean, we have a lot of people from all ages, right? And mid-career people. And this is an example of what we say soft tech. And so I formed YP Academy, part of Yellow Pages. And what we do is to train this group of people in a few skills, do digital marketing, e-commerce, and also tie them up with brands. A lot of the SMEs doesn't have the ability to go online. They can't afford it. So we did this training with a difference. We did this training by bringing the brands from week number one. Actually, from week number one, we got the brands to come in and they talk about the Singapore story. So just as an example, in first cohort, we got Nanyang Sauce. I don't know how many of you heard of Nanyang Sauce. It is artisanal soya sauce. You never imagine that still soya sauce manufactured in Singapore. You know, what is this Kikoman and all those, right? But this Nanyang Sauce, they still do it the old way. They still ferment their beans over a couple of years, the very traditional way with no chemical additives. But it's very expensive. So they came in and then they talked to our students and say, okay, we have this sauce. It costs $12.50, this bottle. Kikoman sell it for $3. Can you help me do it online? So you need to be able to look at the story. How do you convince a global audience that this sauce is worth $12.50 online? I know when you buy it, right? So that particular sauce is only available in NTUC fineness because the NTUC only carry it and they think the fineness are where the richer people goes, right? So I mean I deviate from the story. So anyway, the point being, we wanted to train people with the end in mind, which is all these SMEs comes in early, get the students to work on their project. They select the best from the students, and then they can go live. So it's a 6 months where the students actually learn the fundamentals of digital marketing, e-commerce, and 3 months they work with the brand to actually live it. So it's a win-win because the SMEs now get access to a lot of resources for free, right? It's paid for by the government anyway. So they get it for free. The students get paid $1,200 a month. The brands now have access to some resources, and they have many. I mean, so we have Nanyang Sauce have access to 8 students. 8 students will build websites, and then at the end of it, Nanyang Sauce, okay, I like this student's website. I'm going to use this. Then the 3 months, the students will then live it and ensure that there is revenue coming into Nanyang Sauce and another source of revenue, and the Nanyang Sauce can then hire the student as well. So it's a win-win always, right? So we have that as an example. We have ETO, and a baby clothes brand. We have, the Swans, a lot of brands that you have never heard of because they are just not online, right? So now we are actually helping them, and there's an army of students there now because you're training them, right? So second cohort, we have a sample store from SingPost, also many stores, and they are working on that. Third cohort, we have, I can't remember this brand, but they are Power Food. Then fourth cohort, they're bringing brands from Taiwan. Fifth cohort from Japan. Okay, so the reason is that we need to go through a few cohort, and to the earlier point you mentioned earlier, the brands from Japan, even though they want representatives around the world, they are very hard to work with, very hard to work with. Versus the brands from Taiwan, they're easy, they're very keen, they're very eager, they are willing to give samples. Whereas the brands, even though from Japan, they say, okay, we need to do this. But eventually the students will work with brands from Japan. So when we can do that, our ultimate plan is to be able to form all these students and all these SMEs into a marketplace. And then this become a genesis of a marketplace where SMEs who actually have resources, in need of resources, get these students to work on resources. And not every student will get hired by the brands. So all those remainders can then actually work on the other brands who actually also want to go online. So that's my dream, that's my wish, to form that whole marketplace. And if we can have enough, because when you kind of talk about marketplace, it's all about the size, right? The scale. So once you go to a certain scale, then everything will just move. So I mean, I'm lucky in the COVID that we have the chance to actually start building this. But coming to the other point, right, on SMEs and doing things, I think you need to be able to pivot very quickly. And when opportunity comes, get hold of it. And one of the things I always believe in is that begin with the end in mind. So when I started, took over Yellow Pages, the YP Academy was one of the things I always wanted, because the Academy allows me to do two things. It allows me to get talent, and talent is the number one thing you want to look for. In any business, it's always about talent. And Academy, for once, right now I don't have to interview somebody and you tell me, I'm this. I can actually observe this guy for 9 months and say, I want to pick you. Do you want to join me? So Academy allows me to have the best pick of talent from we train personally. So it's a dream come true, and I think that's one of the things that we are doing now. And that took me 3 years, right? It took me 3 years before the COVID presented me the opportunity. I grabbed it because it's in the back of my mind. So begin with the end in mind, begin with the back of the mind. It might not happen immediately, but somewhere along the line, if you have it in the back of your mind, it will come in, right? It could be 3 years, it could be 5 years, I don't know how long. You can survive that long, something will come in. And that is fantastic, right? So we have now 3 cohorts, and it's incredibly popular. We have 1,000 people applying for 80 positions. So we spend a lot of time interviewing. I want to ensure the right guys get into the program. Yeah, so that's how I feel that we can do. And then from the marketplace, once you have a marketplace, there's a lot of things we can do, right? I want to make my second part of the dream come true. So I have another startup called Tribe. So Tribe is a play on the word tribe, right? Tribe is our community, and it's around micro lending. If you have a marketplace, you have data around transaction, inventory turn, and inventory they have. You can do an algorithm around risk assessment to be able to do loans, because a lot of micro SMEs, they have a lot of problem around getting loans. But you have actually all this data insights. You can actually do a lot of things. And micro loans, you can actually charge, because the micro loans are incredibly expensive, right? There are many businesses out there outside of Singapore doing micro loans, and they charge a very high interest. If you can charge a lower interest because you know the risk profile, and it becomes win-win for the SME as well as whichever company is providing the micro loans. So that is the ultimate dream, right? To have an ecosystem of SMEs that transact globally, not only in Singapore. And using Singapore as the fair trader with integrity. So you're not going to get a counterfeit product from Singapore.
Exactly. That's one of the great things. I've got some questions from the audience here for you. Sorry, I was just enjoying listening to your story so much. There's one from Kabir, and he had a question about if you could describe Yellow Pages a bit more. Is it a digital marketing agency? Is it directory for searching a product or service?
Okay, so yes, I think first and foremost, I would say that digital marketing is our root, and that is a product, one of our product line. Well, I mean the directory is our main product line, and that remains our core. But just the directory itself is not enough. So the digital marketing part comes around that. So if you ask me what is the Yellow Pages, the root of Yellow Pages is actually an advertising company. I mean from the olden days, right? But today they call it a digital marketing company. I want Yellow Pages to be more than a digital marketing company. So today now we do academy to teach people about digital marketing, e-commerce, and I want the fintech part. So ultimately, we are not there today. I want Yellow Pages to be a champion for SMEs, a go-to place where SMEs can go to for all services, whether it's digitalization, whether it's training, whether it's getting their business online, whether it's getting their business advertised online, right? That means being known online. So that is my end in mind. So there's many pieces to that, but we are getting there slowly and eventually.
And then he followed up with, how do you see Google? Are they a friend? Are they an enemy?
Oh, Google will always be a partner, right?
Okay.
We call it a frenemy, right? They are a friend and an enemy, right? So Google is the one who brings the downfall of Yellow Pages around the world. But at the same time, you got to be, they're so big, right? 95% of all searches on internet comes from Google. So they have to be a partner. I wouldn't say a friend. So we work with work with Google extensively. We are a Google partner. And like I say, one of my digital director actually works 1.5 days a week in Google, helping them with their Google ad campaign.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting to connect with them
Yes.
as well. And then he gets the free lunch while they're there.
The free lunch, but it's very intense. So when you work for Google, right? So they make you go through tests, and you got to pass 100% of the questions. You can't even get one wrong. So that's Google for you, right? But that is like I say, in the world of digital marketing, everybody is a friend of me.
Another person, LTH, had a question, and I'd love to, LTH, maybe you could provide a bit more context to your question here as well. They asked, what is your biggest learning from a fall? LTH, do you want to add anything to that as well, or just want to open that up as an opportunity? If not, okay. I guess the biggest learning that you had from a failure or fall.
Well, okay. So one of my biggest failure to date, I wouldn't say even failure. It is still a work in progress, right? One that did not take off is Stripe, the fintech company that we wanted to start. It was done together with MES. The dream that we wanted to do is to be able to provide micro lending to SMEs so that they can fund their business. And part of the reason is this, right? One of the learning I found is, and I invest in startups as well, is that when we started this, I found a CEO, young CEO to run it, and then we were actually trying to build an MVP. But both myself and the CEO for this company, we don't code. So the biggest learning from here is this, right? If you're going to do a startup or you're going to fund a startup, you or your partner better know how to code. That is number one thing. So when I invest now, I'm an investor myself. One question I ask anybody who come to me for money, do you code? If one of the key guys come to me and say they don't code, then I say, okay, next. The reason being this, right? If you are doing a startup and you can't code, to raise the next amount of money is going to be very, very hard. You're going to give away a lot of money to be able to find a CTO. So CTOs are very expensive. Yeah, so my learning from there is that we are doing something new, digitalization or whatever, but you or your guys better know how to do it, how to code. Yeah, so that is a lesson, a big takeaway for me.
CTOs should be very expensive, right, Tiong Gee?
Super expensive, right? Super expensive. So either you learn, you code it, bring to MVP, right? MVP is a minimal viable product, and then you go and raise fund. Because if you can't even bring to MVP, then forget it. So,
Right.
so any startup comes to me, I would say, be an MVP. Do you code? Are you an architect? You're not. Then well, I don't think you're gonna get very far.
Yeah. Let me
You look
open
at
it up to other questions here as well. LTH said, like a chef in a famous restaurant must be able to cook. That's right.
yeah. I mean, you look at Google, right? Larry Page and his partner both codes. And you look at Mark Zuckerberg, he codes.
Yeah.
I mean, these are famous examples. You look at Jeff Bezos, he code. He brought Amazon. So for startups, mandatory.
Fantastic. Can we almost say that everyone should be able to code, Tiong Gee? It's 2020. We should all have some knowledge of coding.
I no, Keith, I think you put it out there. I personally believe that everyone should code, right? At least Python, right? Python is a relatively easy language to learn. So at least you should understand Python. You're going into, I'm not asking everyone to be a full stack developer, but minimally you've got to understand, all the ins and outs. So Python would be a good skill to pick up. Just with Python, actually, you can code the product to MVP.
Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick poll. How many of you feel like you're excited to go and learn coding? Now Tiong Gee has mentioned that this is important. All right, yeah. Awesome. Critical. Other questions folks have?
Where can I sign up to code?
For sure. For sure. I think I think basic coding is important.
There are actually a lot of online resources that teach you coding. So yeah, you can just sign up.
Correct.
There are videos there. There are a lot of ways you can learn online.
Absolutely, Don. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. Very good. Very good. LTH, you also asked another thing, but perhaps you could define what you mean by this question. Share a life learning experience. But I liked, while LTH defines that a little bit, you said that you did a startup and you went to MAS. I think that it's interesting, like what was it like to approach Monetary Authority of Singapore with a startup idea? Like you said, you didn't necessarily know the programming aspect, but you had a solid business idea. What was the journey like, and how was MAS in terms of working with and so forth?
Well, the thing about Yellow Pages is that the brand is still quite universally known. So when we talk to MAS, well, actually it's the other way, right? MAS came and talked to me because they wanted SMEs on board. This is BSB, Business Sans Borders project. So we say, okay, Tiong Gee, why don't Yellow Pages represent the SMEs in Singapore? And then that's how then I presented to them this startup called Tribe, and they say, yeah, come on board. And the minute I asked them, well, are you able to fund some of this thing? They say, oh, no, go away. No, I'm kidding. They say, well, they kind of fund the startup. There are other mechanisms and stuff like that to do the startup. So I was looking for, other avenues. And unfortunately, COVID starts to hit, since late last year. So I presented at the FinTech Festival sometime last year around this time, and we were actually on quite good trajectory. And then somewhere along the way, I think we were actually gaining traction, getting a POC, and then we went along fundraising, and then COVID starts to hit sometime, I think September last year. You start getting signs of that happening, and that disappeared. So we hope to revive it, though. We hope to revive it. You know, one of the dreams I have is to be able to have a coding school, like what I'm having, like digital marketing e-commerce, 2 or 9 months where people who can't afford to bring a product to MVP can bring it to the students and do the coding as well. That is actually what I hope that I can get to do eventually.
Excellent, excellent. That's a really important dream. We have a lot of opportunity here in order to grow and to learn digital. It sounds like we've set the stage here for the importance, the transformation we got to hear from as well from Tiong Gee. Before I summarize, any last words that you would like to leave to everyone as well to keep in mind?
Sorry, yeah.
From you, Tiong Gee, any last words you'd like to share with everyone before I summarize?
Yeah, so I think the important part that you're looking at digitalization is number one, this, right? Digitalization is not about IT. Digitalization is actually about the customer journey. It's about the business. So you don't have to be a deep tech guy. I think first and foremost, I mean, I mentioned about coding is important, but I think the first and foremost, you need to understand your business. You need to understand your customer journey to be able to actually design the digitalization journey. Then once you understand the business, you understand what your customer journey is like, then you need to have tech savviness. So tech savviness is the other part I think everybody needs to have today. So what's tech savviness? Tech savviness means understanding what every technology out there can do. What can AI do? What can, for instance, data analytics do? So on and so forth. I think understanding that is important. You don't necessarily have to do it, but having tech savviness, I call it, is very, very important. Once you have the business know-how, the customer journey, and tech savviness, I think then go into your digitalization journey.
Well, listen, this has been very, very helpful. I think I've learned a few things, as I always have whenever I'm with you, Tiong Gee. You started off and said, you know, one of the key things is attitude. And the example of the 60-year-old lady going in and doing SEO and digital marketing is fantastic. And a number of us are continuously learning as well. You also mentioned about that this is an opportunity for SMEs to have a change of heart and attitude as well. But of course, the communication has to be so clear. There's the carrot. Hey, you have an opportunity to earn so much more money if you were to not just serve customers physically, but also online, digitally. But then on the other side, there's the stick. Make sure cybersecurity is right, process is right, and look at these companies that when they didn't transform, they fell off the map. The company you ended up purchasing for, I'm sure, a lot cheaper than it had been when it was giving dividends is an example of that as well. And you also got to share, I think you didn't really implicitly say this, but what I heard you come across with is expectation setting. I loved how you talked about the board and saying, listen, even if you put in all the money in the world in cybersecurity, it'll be, you know, it's very hard to stop every single person from breaking in. But in addition with expectation setting, it was, you have to constantly and continuously update your online presence. You can't just think it's a one-time, you set up a website and you're done as well. And ultimately then pivot quickly and begin with the end in mind. I thought those are another key point that you shared with us today as well. You also mentioned coding. Now this is near and dear to my heart. Programming, everyone should be programming. Yes, that's exciting. So, and I'm glad that a number of you are enthusiastic about that. But I hope that you'll consider, at least if you're not coding, make sure that your niece and nephew and others are programming as well. And finally, you heard that Tiong Gee has this great YP Academy where they train people, work closely with NTUC, and also they develop talent, not only for his company, of course, that's one place, but for Singapore as a whole. And listen, we also provide training, but there's enough to go around. There's so much work that we have to do to pivot as a nation and move into this new fintech time. I've shared with you Tiong Gee's LinkedIn I hope you don't mind, Tiong Gee.
No, thanks, Steve. Thanks for providing that.
You can definitely link with him there. I've also shared the Yellow Pages homepage. There's a really interesting feature that's on there as well that I liked, which is this online presence check. I went to see how the School of Computing is doing, and it looks like we're going to need to talk to Tiong Gee after this session as well to continue to improve. You know, you can always continue to improve and develop, and why should we be any different? We also put up there STMI, Strategic Technology Management Institute, and that's where we do executive education. I also shared here for you, wow, lots of things to share. Of course, our new SGUS program, which is for unemployed Singaporeans that are mid-career. Those three things need to be met as qualifications, but this is where you go through and learn management, digital data and analytics, and then fintech as well. So it's building on our fintech SG program. This just
10
came
minutes.
out as well. So we're really excited about that new program. So please go ahead, take a look at these things, and feel free to stay in touch, connect, and we're at the end of time for this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really glad that you all were able to come. I hope some of your questions got answered. We're going to close up the formal session here, but you're welcome to hang around for a little bit as we have some casual networking as well. And I've also put my own LinkedIn there too if you want to keep in touch. Thanks everyone for joining us today. For those of you who have to go off to meetings and maybe need to drive somewhere, but thanks Tiong Gee for joining us as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask, wait, before I forget, a picture